Every morning before the sun kissed the sky, Rami and I took our goats up the mountain. It wasn't just routine, it was a ritual, a sacred passage into a world untouched by judgment, expectation, or the noise of the village. Up there, we belonged only to the wind, the grass, the open sky. And maybe, though we didn't dare say it to each other. Rami walked a few steps ahead of me, as always, kicking loose rocks with that lazy confidence that made everyone watch him twice. His shirt was usually half unbuttoned by the time we reached the ridge, revealing that bronzed chest of his, always sun-warmed and careless. He smelled like sweat and fig leaves, and I never told him how much I loved that. We were both 19. Old enough to be called men by the village, but still stupid enough to believe the world ended at the edge of that mountain. "Race you to the big stone," he shouted once, grinning over his shoulder before breaking into a sprint. He always beat me. I didn't mind. At the top, where the land flattened into a quiet meadow, we let the goats roam. They knew the drill. We lay back on the grass, arms behind our heads, looking at clouds and pretending we saw things in them. A goat, a fish, a pair of lips. The silence between us was never uncomfortable. It was thick, like honey, slow, sweet, and heavy with everything we didn't say. I often caught myself watching the curve of his mouth as he chewed grass stems, or the way his fingers absently tapped against his thigh. Small things, stupid things, but they stayed with me long after we walked back down. We never talked about girls. Unlike the other boys, Rami never bragged about touching anyone's breasts behind the shed or kissing someone's cousin at a wedding. I never asked why. I was afraid the answer would break something I didn't want to fix. One afternoon, while the goats were grazing lower on the slope, Rami found a shaded patch under a large fig tree and flopped down. "Come here," he said, patting the ground next to him. I hesitated for a second longer than usual. My pulse jumped, but I moved to lie beside him. Our shoulders touched. It felt accidental. It wasn't. "You ever think about leaving?" he asked, eyes on the sky. "Leaving what?" "This. The village. The mountain. Everything." I nodded. "Sometimes. But where would I go?" He didn't answer. Instead, he reached into his satchel and pulled out half a loaf of bread, broke it in two, and handed me a piece. His fingers brushed mine. I held the bread too long before taking a bite. "Sometimes," he said, "I think we should just disappear. Build a house up here. No one would find us." I laughed. "And live with the goats? Why not? They don't judge." He turned his head and looked at me, really looked at me, and I couldn't hold his gaze for more than a second. There was something in it, something I wasn't ready to name. The wind picked up, and with it, the scent of wild thyme and his skin. I swallowed hard. That evening, as the sky turned tangerine and the goats started making their way back on their own, I paused behind Rami on the trail down. The path was narrow, and he looked back at me, sweat glistening on his neck. "Come on, Slowpoke." I didn't move. He stepped back up, until we stood chest to chest on the incline. The air changed. "Something wrong?" he asked, his voice low. "No," I said. But I wanted to reach out. I wanted to place my hand on his chest and ask him to stay still, just for a second. Just long enough for me to understand what this feeling was. But I didn't. I couldn't. Instead, I said, "You always win. It's annoying." He smirked and nudged me with his shoulder. "You let me win." We walked the rest of the way down in silence, but everything had shifted. That night, I lay on my back in my small bed, listening to the crickets outside and the sound of my own breath. I thought about the moment under the fig tree, the weight of his gaze, the brush of his fingers, the way my body ached, not with pain, but with something fuller, more terrifying. I wanted him. I didn't know what that meant, or what I was supposed to do about it. I only knew it was real, and that it made my heart beat faster than it ever had. The next day we climbed the mountain again. The same trail, the same goats, the same sky. But we didn't lie under the tree. We sat apart. Too far to touch. Too close to ignore. Rami didn't say much. Neither did I. But his eyes found mine a few times, and in them was a question I wasn't ready to answer. Not yet. Still I felt it. Whatever lived between us, it was waking up. After that day under the fig tree, something inside us shifted. We didn't talk about it, never named it, but we both felt it. It was in the silences, in the way our eyes lingered too long, in the way our bodies tensed when we stood too close. Rami didn't pull away anymore. If anything, he moved closer. The next week, while the goats wandered through the tall grass, we sat on a flat rock that overlooked the valley. The sky stretched wide above us, a silent witness to everything we were trying not to say. I handed him a plum I'd taken from my mother's basket. He took it, bit into it, juice running down his chin. Without thinking, I reached over and wiped it with the edge of my sleeve. He froze. So did I. His eyes locked on mine. Then he leaned in, slow, like he was giving me time to run. I didn't. I couldn't. His lips brushed mine, barely a kiss. More like a question. When he pulled back, he didn't say a word. Just leaned against the rock and stared at the horizon. I tasted plum and panic and something warm that curled deep in my chest. The next day we kissed again. Longer. Slower. No talking, just mouths learning each other's shape. I touched the back of his neck. He shivered. I memorized that. By the third time, we were lying flat in the grass, his leg draped over mine. His fingers trailed along my ribs, stopping at the edge of my shirt. I held my breath, then let it out when he slipped his hand underneath, skin to skin. I thought I might break from how good it felt. But still, we said nothing. That became our routine. Up the mountain. Release the goat. Find a place to lie down, to touch, to explore. We didn't use words for what we were doing. No declarations, no promises. Just hunger and silence. I told myself it was enough. But it wasn't. One morning, Rami arrived late. When he did, he wasn't alone. "This is Kareem," he said, gesturing to the taller boy beside him. "He's from the next village. He's helping his uncle herd this summer." Kareem was different. Older, maybe 21. His hair was darker, neater. His eyes scanned everything like he already knew the ending to every story. He smiled at me, but it didn't reach his eyes. We walked up the mountain together. I hated every step of it. Rami talked more that day. Loud, animated, joking with Kareem about things I wasn't part of. I walked behind them, my fists clenched so tight my nails dug into my palms. Every time Rami laughed at Kareem's joke, I felt like I was shrinking. I kept glancing at their shoulders. How they brushed, how Kareem touched Rami's arm when he made a point. It was too casual. Too easy. I hated him for it. At the top, we all sat together. Kareem rolled a cigarette and offered it to Rami first, then me. I shook my head. I didn't want anything from him. Later, while the goats grazed and Kareem wandered off to piss, I cornered Rami near the tree. "What's this about?" I asked. He blinked. "What?" "Kareem. Why is he here?" "He wanted to come. It's not a big deal." "It is to me." Rami looked at me, expression unreadable. "You jealous or something?" The way he said it made it feel ridiculous, like I was a child clinging to a toy someone else touched. "We haven't even talked about what this is," he added. I stared at him. "You kissed me. And you kissed me back. Then what the hell are we doing?" Rami looked away, jaw clenched. "We're just figuring things out." It wasn't an answer. But it was all I was going to get. The next few days were worse. Kareem joined us again. Then again. I began making excuses not to go. I told my mother I was sick. Told my father the goats were grazing low. But eventually, I couldn't stay away. One afternoon, I climbed the mountain early. I wanted to think, to clear my head before they arrived. I sat near the fig tree and watched the valley. The breeze was cooler than usual. Something in the air felt wrong. Then I heard laughter, low, breathless. I stood. And there, just behind a boulder, I saw them. Rami. Kareem. Kissing. It wasn't soft or questioning like it was with me. It was hungry. Rami's hands were on Kareem's hip. Kareem's fingers were in Rami's hair. I couldn't move. A goat bleated behind me and they broke apart. Rami saw me. His face changed. I couldn't tell if it was guilt or anger or just surprise. I turned and walked away. I didn't run. I didn't cry. Not then. I walked all the way down the mountain, not looking back once. That night, Rami came to my house. He stood at the edge of our small yard, not stepping inside. "You saw." I nodded. He looked tired. "It didn't mean anything." "Then what did we mean?" He didn't answer. He stepped closer, his voice low. "You're the only one I ever felt safe with." "Then why him?" Silence. He looked away. "I don't know." I waited. He didn't say more. So I went inside. Shut the door. But I didn't lock it. Days passed, then a week. I stopped climbing the mountain. I told my parents I'd outgrown it, that I was helping Uncle with the field work instead. But the truth sat heavier than any chore. I couldn't stand the idea of seeing Rami's mouth on someone else. Couldn't stand the way I still wanted him even after I watched him give a part of himself away. The goats still needed tending though. The mountain didn't care about broken hearts. One morning, after another night of sleepless turning and clenched fists around nothing but sheets, I found myself halfway up the familiar path again. I told myself I just wanted air. Solitude. Space to think. But that was a lie. I was hoping he'd be there. He was. Alone. He sat on the same flat rock, chewing a reed like nothing had changed, like the whole damn world hadn't cracked open in front of us. When he saw me, he stood, startled, then hesitated. "You came," he said softly. "I thought you might be gone." I was. For a few days. Then Kareem left. Back to his village? Rami nodded. His uncle needed help. I waited for more, but he didn't offer it. He sat again, motioning to the space beside him. I didn't move. "I didn't plan it," he said. "With him. It just happened." That's what people say when they don't want to admit they made a choice. His jaw tightened. "I'm not like you. I don't know what I want, not all the time. I don't have the courage to want something dangerous." "Then don't pretend you do." The wind pushed between us. The silence this time was not honey. It was glass. "I missed you," he said finally. "I didn't ask you to. You think I don't hate myself for what happened? I think you hate being alone more." That hit something. He flinched. I turned to leave. But his voice stopped me. "I still want you." The way he said it, low, certain, raw, made my knees weak. Want wasn't the same as love. Want wasn't safe. But I wanted him too, and that was the curse. I walked back to him. Slow. Careful. And when I stood in front of him, I let him see the hurt in my eyes. The bruise his betrayal left. "Then prove it." His hand reached up, rested gently on my hip. Not rushed. Not greedy. "I don't know how to be better," he whispered. "Then start by not lying." "I didn't lie about you." That broke me a little. I sat beside him, my body betraying the anger still simmering in my chest. He turned his face toward mine, and I let him kiss me, this time with nothing between us. No goats, no trees, no Kareem. I kissed him back. Because I was weak. Because I was human. Because we are never as strong as we want to be. Afterward, we lay on the grass again, arms tangled. But something was missing. The innocence. The trust. That easy silence we used to share had been replaced with noise neither of us spoke aloud. "What happens now?" I asked, staring at the blue above. "We start over?" he offered. "You don't get to erase what you did." "I'm not asking for erasure," he said. "I'm asking for another chance." "But what happens when the next Kareem shows up?" He didn't answer. And I didn't push. That evening, he walked me down the mountain. We said nothing. Our shoulders touched again, but it didn't feel like magic. It felt like a question. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept hearing his voice in my head. "I still want you." But want wasn't enough. The next morning, I went up again. Alone. I needed to feel the mountain without him. I needed to remember who I was before all this began. The sky was clearer than it had been in days. The goats followed lazily, unaware of the war in my chest. Halfway up, I heard his voice, calling my name. He was running, breathless, hair wild, eyes searching. "Wait," he said, catching up. "Just wait." I stood still. "I'm scared," he said, panting. "That's the truth. I'm scared of what we are. Of what it means." I kissed him because I didn't know how to handle how much I wanted you. It felt easier to ruin it than to face it. I stared at him. "You already ruined it. But maybe I can fix it." He stepped closer. Took my hand. "I don't want anyone else. I don't want confusion. I want you. Just you." My throat tightened. "Words are easy, Rami. Then let me prove it with time." I nodded, slowly. "Not a promise. Just a possibility." And for now, that was enough. For 2 weeks, Rami and I tried to find our way back. We went to the mountain like before, with our goats and our silence, but everything had changed. The kisses returned, yes. The touches too. But now, each moment carried a shadow. The laughter didn't ring as freely. The silences weren't honey anymore. They were tension. Hopeful, but tense. I wanted to believe we could rebuild what we had, but something inside me stayed on edge. Every time Rami leaned in, some part of me flinched, quietly, subtly. I didn't trust my heart in his hands anymore. But I still gave it, piece by piece. We made love for the first time the second Sunday after Kareem was gone. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't rough. It was deliberate. Hesitant but tender, 2 boys trying to say what their mouths still didn't know how to form. I memorized the arch of his back, the way he whispered my name like a prayer, the warmth of his palm on my chest. It was beautiful. But beauty isn't always enough to save you. The morning after, Rami held me close, his forehead pressed to mine, breath mingling with mine. What we did, it's real," he said. "I know," I whispered, not sure if I believed it. "Then let's make it last." I wanted to believe him. God, I did. But deep inside something told me, he was trying. He wasn't lying. But he didn't know how to be constant. Not yet. And maybe not ever. That week, rumors started circling in the village. Not about us. Not directly. But enough to shake me. One evening, my uncle pulled me aside. "You and Rami spend a lot of time alone," he said. "It's raising questions." I kept my face still. "We've always herded together." He looked at me long. "You're not boys anymore." The warning was clear. The next day, I told Rami we needed space. His face twisted. "You're ending this?" "I'm protecting it." He stepped back like I'd struck him. "We just started again." "No, Rami. We started a long time ago. We just refused to admit it." His lips parted like he wanted to protest, but then he looked away, down the mountain. "So that's it. I love you," I said. "But I can't keep bleeding just to prove it." Silence. He didn't chase me this time. I walked down the mountain alone, every step heavier than the last. Days passed. Then weeks. I stopped going up. Rami did too. I'd see him in the village sometimes, across the square or by the well. Our eyes would meet for half a second, then slide away. Not from shame, but from something worse, memory. One afternoon, a wedding festival came to the village. I stood among the lanterns, watching the dancers, the swirl of color and laughter. And then I saw him, Rami, standing alone, a fig branch between his teeth, just watching. He didn't approach me, but I walked to him. "Still chewing those?" I asked. He smiled, small and soft. "Old habits." We stood like that, shoulder to shoulder, not touching. "Do you hate me?" he asked. "No," I said. "But I stopped needing you." He winced. "That hurts." "It was supposed to." He nodded. "I was never ready for what we had." "I was," I said. "And I don't regret it." We stayed a little longer, watching the sky go orange above the village. Then I said goodbye, not with words but with a look. One he returned, full of something between apology and acceptance. The next day, I climbed the mountain one last time. Alone. The air was cleaner than I remembered. The grass softer. The fig tree stood where it always had, rooted and patient. I lay beneath it and closed my eyes, letting the wind brush against me like a lover's parting touch. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't broken. What we had was real. Messy. Imperfect. Brief. But it mattered. It showed me what I could want. What I could feel. What I deserve. Love isn't always meant to last. But sometimes it's meant to open your chest and let the light in. Even if just once. When I walked back down, I didn't cry. I didn't look back. Because I didn't need the mountain anymore.